Yeah, it's live now, Councillor Rabi.
And good evening, everybody, to the October Mansfield Shire Council meeting. Present we have Councillor Holcomb, Councillor Sladden and Councillor Webb, myself, Deputy Mayor Steve Rabi, and I'll be running the meeting tonight in the absence of our Mayor, who sends his apologies. I'll call on each councillor and ask them to confirm verbally that they can see all councillors and hear the proceedings. Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Thank you. Councillor Sladden.
I can hear the proceedings and I can see all councillors and council officers.
Thank you. And Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll ask councillors to confirm by raising their hand that they could hear each statement of councillors. Thank you. Madam CEO, any apologies?
Yes, as you've rightly pointed out, we have an apology from Mayor Tian tonight.
Thank you. The statement of commitment. I'll read the statement of commitment. As councillors of Mansfield Shire, we are committed to ensuring our behaviour meets the standards set by the Mansfield Shire Councillor Code of Conduct and Councillor Charter. We will, at all times, faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in us by the community. I'll ask each councillor to confirm their commitment. Councillor Holcomb.
I confirm my commitment.
Councillor Sladden.
I confirm my commitment.
And Councillor Webb.
I confirm my commitment.
Thank you. Councillor Webb, would you like to do the acknowledgement of country, please?
Our meeting is being held on the lands of the Tongarong people, and we wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. We'd also like to pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today.
Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Has any councillor got a conflict of interest tonight? Councillor Holcomb?
No conflicts, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sladden?
I have no conflicts in relation to any agenda items for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Webb?
No conflicts in regards to any agenda items tonight, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I have no conflicts of interest on any agenda items tonight either. Item 7, the confirmation of last month's minutes. We have a recommendation. Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. That the minutes of the Mansfield Shire Council meeting held on 19th of September 2023 be confirmed as an accurate record.
Thank you. And a second, Councillor Webb. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. And motion is passed. Item 8, representations, deputations tonight, Madam CEO.
Yes, we have 3 deputations tonight, 2 in relation to a planning matter and 1 in relation to the Friends of Benalale MOU.
Thank you. Item 9, notices of motion. Neil? Thank you. Item 10 is the Mayor's report. I'll take that as read, councillors. Have we got a recommendation, Councillor Webb?
Motion being that Council receive the Mayor's report for the period 20th of September to 10th of October 2023.
Thank you. And the seconder? Councillor Sladden. And all in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11, reports from council appointed representatives. The Australia Day Awards Committee, there are nothing to report there apart from Madam CEO has something to say.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just to acknowledge that the nomination, it's open for nominations, and we'd really like to see some great nominations coming through.
Thank you. The Mansfield Shire CEO Employment Matters Committee. I'm on the committee with Councillor Holcomb and Mayor Tehan, and we met on Thursday, the 5th of October. For the CEO's KPI annual review. The report has not been finalised yet, but will be presented to the November meeting. The Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance, Councillor Webb.
We've not met, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The Hume Regional Local Government Network has not met. Mansfield Shire Council Ordinary Risk Committee, Councillor Holcomb.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yes, we've met recently, and the purpose of the meeting was to review both the draft financial statements for 2022-23 and the profit performance statements for the same period, and provided feedback to the executive. And in the process, the committee acknowledged the work of the executive, particularly the GM Business and Economic Development, Julie Williams, and her team in pulling it together, because there was a lot of work in pulling this together, and it was made difficult because of a couple of reasons related to timing constraints in certain areas. So their work was well and truly acknowledged and thanked for what they've been able to do. As a result, the Audit and Risk also recommended that both the draft financial statements and the performance statements be put up for adoption at tonight's meeting, subject to some final changes by the committee and the auditors, which have come through and will be approved tonight. The Audit and Risk Committee also recommended the adoption of the draft governance and management checklist, which is also before council tonight. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. The Municipal Association of Victoria, Madam CEO, I believe you attended.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yes, myself and the Mayor attended that. There were 45 motions in total, including and plus 8 late motions, and 1 motion put forward by the MAV board to address the planning changes that planning scheme amendments that have been passed by the state government. Council's motion to the State Council was consolidated with a very similar motion from the Yarra City Council, and that passed. And that was about retaining and protecting the community voice in the planning system. The MAV also passed a very comprehensive motion relating to the planning reform, and that had 11 points and called on the state government, the planning minister and the state government to partner with local government with genuine engagement on planning reform, and particularly to uphold the democratic process for communities to influence the way that Victoria is planned. So a lot of focus on planning in this state council.
Thank you, Madam CEO. The Rural Councils of Victoria AGM was attended by Mayor James Tehan, and he will give a report in the November meeting. Could I have a motion for item 11, please, Councillor Webb?
Motion being that council note the verbal reports provided by councillors in relation to their representations on external committees.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Holcomb. All in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item 12, public question time. Have we got any questions, Madam CEO?
No questions.
Thank you. And item 13, the Chief Executive Officer's report for this year. We got any questions or queries on the report? None. Have we got a motion for item 13.1? Councillor Holcomb.
The motion is that council receive and note the Chief Executive Officer's report for the period 9th of September 2023 to 10th of October 2023.
Thank you. And the seconder was Councillor Webb. Thank you. And all in favour of that motion? The motion is carried. Item 13.2.1 is the Station Precinct Master Plan. And the responsible officer is Strategic Planning Officer, Mr. Oscar Yenkin. Can't see you yet. There you are, Mr. Yenkin. Welcome to the October meeting. You're on mute.
Good evening, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Good evening. Over to you.
I'll just start by saying if there are any questions about the Station Precinct Master Plan, it is proposed for adoption. Are there any questions?
Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And thanks, Oscar. I guess my questions pertain to the steps from here. We know the Station Precinct's been around for a long time in various forms, as you've detailed in your report. For council moving onwards, what are our next steps in order to push this plan forward?
If I could hand over to Madam CEO to answer that. I think she can shed some light.
Thanks. Yes, we will be basically our very next step will be to pursue an application for the precincts funding, which is currently open for the Commonwealth, to implement some of the key aspects of this plan. And so that is going to be our main focus. We're already delivering on some of the key elements of the plan, including the Heritage Museum, but there's a whole range of projects in there that we think would fit nicely into the precincts funding that's available and open for submissions now. And so that is what the team are focused on as a very next step. But I guess, in short, implementation as funding allows.
Councillor Sladen.
Mr. Yenkin, could you please enlighten us on what is happening with the Mansfield pump track?
Just to clarify, the detailed design or the location as it is on the plan?
The location of it, please.
Yes, so the original location in the first plan was on the northern side of the main rail trail. It has since been moved to the south as we went out for public consultation, and it was discussed that Bushkinder now uses that area, and it is actually fairly constrained land for a pump track. So it was moved to the south where there's a larger, flatter area that is already cleared of vegetation. There will be, in the detailed design, interventions to soften the appearance of it from the township approach, including vegetation and plantings. So, but that's the preferred area, and it is alongside that shared path with the view that people can easily access from the car park and from around the back, and particularly to encourage more livability and walkability throughout the town for future residents.
And that has been done in consultation with the potential users of the pump track?
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Yenkin. It's a very good report. Obviously, there's a lot of work gone into that, so well done. Just a couple of questions. One is the closure of the stock route. I assume that's just referring to the closure of the stock route off the Maroondah Highway. Is that correct?
If either Madam CEO or the GM would like to step in, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is just from the end the entire stock route will not be closed. That will be needed for future residents and developments up in that area. But this is just more at that end to make sure that we're not having more traffic coming through, but we are encouraging a park and we want it to be cohesive.
Yep.
You may recall in the original plan that it was actually separated over 2 different sections.
Yep.
That's how separate it was. We're integrating it all now for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just I hadn't seen it before. And so then by definition, that means that the Stockman's Rise, there'll be one route out from Stockman Rise, and that's Stockman's Rise section 2. That'll go to Dead Horse Lane, I assume. That's their exit point.
If I can refer to the GM. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I might, because that sits into the statutory side of our planning area. So there are a couple of planning applications that have been considered and approved for Stockman's Rise, for the other half of Stockman's Rise, which accesses via the stock route. Part of the conditions of those permits were that we not have access going through the station precinct, that we do direct traffic up the stock route and out through Dead Horse Lane. So yeah, the Department of Transport were very clear that they don't want vehicle access through the station precinct at that point, and they've found a way to discourage it. And the cost of closing that will end up lying with the developers of that property to the north as well.
Okay, thank you. And just one other one there. The master plan's governance is referred to on page 11 of the report. Can you tell me what that involves, the master plan's governance?
Relating to the structure of the bodies involved?
Well, it's just referred to, feedback was provided on the master plan's governance. I just wondered.
So that's more, yeah, okay. So that's relating to the previous structure in the initial creation of the plan. It was more relating to a submission that we'd received during the course of engagement, just to make sure that any future governance structures were really clear as well. Notwithstanding that the original one had clarity, but just making it more transparent into the future. So any future projects that occur on that site, we'll be able to know which party was responsible, where the funding is coming from, and if we're working with community groups, which we will be continuing to do into the future, that we know where responsibilities lie to make sure that we can implement it efficiently, the whole project.
So there's a document that clearly states what that governance structure is.
Would you like to jump in there, Madam CEO?
Yeah, I was just going to, I think probably that is more reflective of the feedback that we got from the community. So in terms of the governance structure, what we currently have in operation is a stakeholder, a quarterly stakeholder meeting that we have with the stakeholders in the precinct. But we also make sure that, as we do for any major project, that we undertake comprehensive community engagement, and with a view that the community can influence us in terms of the outcomes of that engagement. And I think, as Oscar has demonstrated through the revisions made to this, there's been a number of revisions made in response to feedback that we have received from the community that will continue into the future. And yeah, that's where it currently stands, I guess. So we will be continuing with that stakeholder committee and have open to broadening that as required.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question, Mr. Yenkin. The horse yards, are they being relocated from their current position? Where do you envisage they're going to be located?
That's correct. They have been proposed to be moved up to Withers Lane. Now, this decision wasn't made until we had consultation with riding groups and riding businesses that operate within that area. They were happier to see it up there for a number of reasons. A, they don't want it next to the children's playground, but B, they've had issues in the past where horses are coming through the site and it's a bit more constrained. They would prefer to take their horse floats to Withers Lane and the trail ride there, away from higher activity areas.
Sure, understood. Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions? Councillors, have we got a Councillor Webb?
Motion being that Council adopt the Mansfield Station Precinct Master Plan October 2023.
Thank you. And a seconder for the motion? Councillor Holcomb. Would anyone like to talk to the motion?
I will, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just to say that it's been a huge effort by the staff here to bring this together into some sort of cohesive plan. I think it's sort of been fragmented and changed over the past, and to bring this together into something which has had good community feedback is really important. And I certainly look forward to seeing parts of this project move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Webb. Any other councillor want to talk to the Councillor Holcomb?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge all the work that's gone into it by Mr. Yankin and other people in the planning area in particular, and the committees that have been involved. There's been and on top of that, the amount of engagement. I don't think I've ever seen as much engagement on a project as there's been with this one in the Botanic Park. It's been quite extraordinary. So, and the community's had lots of different opportunities to make comment on it. So I think what you've done in pulling that all together is quite remarkable. Also, I think it'd be great to see that end of town really deliver on the potential that it's got. And this will do that. It looks like it being a real game changer for that end of the town. So well done.
Thank you. Anyone want to speak against the motion? All right, I call for a vote for the motion. Councillor Slater, so you're on. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yankin, for your time tonight. Okay, so we have item 13.2.2, the Botanic Park Master Plan. And the responsible officer is yet again Mr. Yankin. Spoke before. Sorry about that. Over to you, Mr. Yankin, again.
Gotta say it, can't get rid of me.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Well, it's pretty much the same as the previous one. If there are any questions or comments on this master plan, it's followed a very similar process and was undertaken at the same time as the review of the station precinct to cover off all areas. So if there are any questions or comments, I'm happy to take them.
Councillor Holcomb.
Yeah, a similar question to Councillor Webb's question for the station precinct, Mr. Yankin. What the next steps for this? How does this all come together to take it to the next level?
So it may involve a similar process to the station precinct. However, the projects have been broken up a little bit more, and they have been accounted for, some of them where possible, in the Capital Works program. Otherwise, it will be grants and fundings to implement those. But you might recall an earlier draft of the project had enormous buildings throughout there that were upwards of 8 million to do. This takes a more piecemeal approach that is more palatable for council to afford, but still has a thematic design language that will ensure that everything maintains cohesion. The one proviso for that is probably the car park. That will be something that will happen down the line into the future. But again, grants and funding, and we will be advocating for that, I believe, as much as we can.
So if you take that step for some of the Capital Works projects that you mentioned there, what would be some of those projects that are in this botanical, the relevant to this botanical park, which you'll be kicking off? So the next
at the moment, anyone may jump in here, but I believe they are undertaking a redesign of the Gadabar Garden. That is to do with drainage and controlling flooding as much as it is. When I was there on Monday, you couldn't actually see it. So we'll be shoring that up quite a bit.
Yes.
I think
I might add,
You
and
can
so
step in.
through Mr. Deputy Mayor, there's a range of things. So there's some of the smaller projects like upgrading of park furniture, providing more opportunities for people to be a bit more active in the park, certainly within the capital works and the field services program. The planning schedule and the thematic framework around the development around the site will also allow our parks and gardens crew to really get into doing some more works in terms of planting and development of the garden areas. And then there'll be some significant works done in relation to the wetland area that will need to be developed. That will be done through developer contribution from the development to the north in Redgum Estate. So that large body of work that will need to be done prior to us being gifted to that part of the park will be done through the development of the land in Redgum Estate. So that one's probably the one that'll the biggest one that will happen quickest, I'd imagine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Sladen.
Mr. Yenkin, I'm just a little confused. Your officer's report, in the final paragraph or towards the end, you're referring to the car park and the feedback that was given regarding the length of the car park. And you're saying that it is suggested to be shortened or not do the length. Yet when I look at the plan, I can't find this on the plan. Are you saying if we adopt this one, we will then amend the lengthening of it? Or is that lengthening or the actual length of the proposed car park avenue, is that in the plan, in the accompanying document? And if so, could you refer me to which page it's on?
so. That change has already been made.
So it has been.
That change has been made to make everything more transparent. We would prefer to have those submissions, have this presented to council as it will be hopefully adopted, rather than make that change later on.
Yes.
So yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the change has been made.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor, the attachment 3.2.2.2, because we have to make sure we had lots in there for you, actually has a copy of the proposed plan for adoption. The change that Mr. Yenkin's referring to is where we've got the car parking coming in off Mansfield Whitfield Road to a roundabout section. The previous iterations of the plan had that a section of car park extending further to the west. It's that western section that's been removed subject to the to community feedback on the plan. So we had strong community feedback that they didn't want car parking to go that far into the park. So that bit was removed. So that's the change that's been made. It is reflected in the proposed plan for adoption.
Don't really want to make a big deal of this, Ms. Crane. So the document that is the master plan document,
yes,
right? The map that's included in that is a different map to the map that you're asking us to adopt, because that map doesn't look the same as what's in the document. So are we adopting the document or are we adopting the extra plan?
Okay, let me have a look. So you're looking at the actual 3.2.2.1, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That if there is a no, the illustrative master plan in there does show the car parking ceasing at the roundabout and not continuing all the way through on page 29 of that plan.
And that is, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that is the same as the actual the 13.2.
13.2.2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Originally, that went all the way through where that pathway is shown. It went all the way through, and there was concern raised about it chopping the park in two.
Yep. Okay. All right. Sorry, I was just a little confused with your commentary about the for it to be amended.
Certainly, yeah. So through you, Mr. Mayor, it was amended, I suppose, is the commentary that is what we're saying. It was amended. It did show it going further. The final plan for adoption was amended to respond to that, and the current documents in the attachments are the correct ones.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crane and Mr. Yenkin. Thank you.
Anyone else got any questions? In that case, I'll ask for a motion. Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The council adopt the Mansfield Botanic Park Master Plan.
Thank you. And I'll ask for a seconder, Councillor Webb. And would anyone like to talk to that motion? Councillor Holcomb.
Thank you. I'd just like to say similar comments to at the station precinct. It's a terrific plan. It's very exciting. It's got two great initiatives at either end of the town. And so it's extremely exciting. It'll bookend the towns quite nicely, or quite beautifully, actually. So yeah, well done, Oscar. There's obviously a lot of work, and also, again, a tremendous amount of engagement by you and your team. So that's gone really, I'd say, been very well received by the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to talk to Councillor Slatton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to also congratulate Mr. Yenkin and his team and the planning team on this document. It is finally very pleasing to see that we do have a master plan for the Botanic Garden and not have the ad hoc and piecemeal changes that have occurred in my memory. And also, I know the original plan that came before council showed a very busy precinct with lots of activity centres or precincts, if you like. But a botanic park is really a passive park, and what we've got here, I believe, is a very passive park that does allow for physical activity, but more importantly for people or the community to go and relax and walk around and enjoy what is going to be a beautiful park. So well done on that, and for negotiating all of the submissions that you've had to receive, and for herding the cats. So well done, and the dogs for that matter. Well done, Mr. Yenkin.
Thank you, Councillor Slatton. Anybody else? Mr. Yenkin, I'd like to also endorse both the councillors' comments tonight. It's a great job. Thank you very much. So I assume no one wants to, so we'll have a vote for the motion. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Yenkin. Item 13.2.3 is 294 Monkey Gully Road, Mansfield. The responsible officer is the Coordinator of Statutory Planning, Nicole Embling. Hi, Nicole.
Good evening.
Welcome tonight. And I see that we have two people wanting to speak to that item tonight. Mr. Richard Umbers and Ellen Hogan as well. But, I'll ask Nicole Embling if you'd like to take us through this agenda item, please.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This development plan application is for 294 Monkey Gully Road, just on the southwestern side of Mansfield. It's in an area surrounded by rural living land and adjoins what's known as Stoneley Park Estate and Marinda Way, where there is existing rural living zone development, some of which still being built on. This land has been zoned rural living for quite some time now, and this application has actually been with council since 2019, at which time advice was received from the Country Fire Authority that it would be more suitable for the application to wait to be proceeded until such time as an alternative access could be achieved. The applicant at the time decided to wait until such time as the connection was made through to Stoneley Road before progressing, and so only recently has this application recommenced its assessment process. Through that process, the application was extensively advertised to the adjoining nearby property owners, especially those in the Marinda Way establishment. Quite a lot of community consultation was done and a consultative meeting held with the submitters to the application. Through that process, some very minor amendments were made to the development plan by the applicant, which you can find in the attachments to the council report. Those minor changes did include some additional documentation to support the land capability assessment and some slight changes to the effluent exclusion zones and building exclusion zones surrounding the waterways. The development plan application does include a 15-lot proposed subdivision, with one lot being a balance lot, so a larger, approximately 27-hectare property on the eastern side, and the other 14 lots ranging from approximately 2 hectares up to 4.8, with a single access road off Marinda Way going through the Hollands Road Reserve, which is currently an unused and unmade road reserve. I am happy to take questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Holcomb.
Ms. Emeling, just a couple of questions. The cultural overlay, or the cultural study, I should say, that's meant to be done, what's the status of that, and why hasn't that been done?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The land is affected by a cultural heritage area of sensitivity. However, the requirement for a cultural heritage management plan is not until a planning permit application is submitted. So at the development plan stage, which comes first, cultural heritage management plan is not required for consideration. However, I'm aware that the applicants have commenced that process, but I'm not sure where it is up to date.
Okay. A couple of things. Just the Stoneley Road, the unmade road that's there on the boundary of this. What's the distance between? What's the distance of that road? So how much of a gap is there between the boundary fences on the subdivision and the boundary fences on the existing homes there?
So through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I believe the distance that you're looking at is 280 metres as depicted in the development plan. So the distance between Marinda Way and the edge of the subject land. Does that answer your question?
No, it's between the blocks off Marinda Way and the subject matter land boundary fence. There's a road there on the map saying Stoneley Road, an unmade road.
Yes, sorry, my apologies. So Stoneley Road Reserve is approximately 20 metres wide, I do believe, but I could double check for you. That road has purposely been left unused as it's been deemed unsuitable because of the waterway that is quite extensive through that road reserve. Decisions have been made based on land capability assessments that it's not suitable for a road development.
So is that the major drainage line, or what you call a waterway? Is that through that area there? Is that mostly going down that Stoneley Road?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
no more questions. I believe we have two delegations to this point, 13.2.3. And Ms. Young, could you help me out here?
We've got Alan up first, so she's in the
Okay.
room. So Alan, if you could please just turn your camera on and take yourself off mute.
Ma'am?
Oh, good evening, Ms. Hogan, and welcome to our October meeting for the 294 Monkey Gully Road in Mansfield. I believe you've got a delegation tonight you'd like to speak to us. You have 3 minutes and go for it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, councillors, Madam Chief Executive Officer, executive officers and Council's Coordinator of Statutory Planning. Firstly, we fully endorse the officer's report at item 13.2.3, 294 Monkey Gully Road, the DP, and subsequent recommendation for the approval of the development plan. 294 Monkey Gully Road was rezoned in 2006, some 17 years ago. The rezoning incorporated a large swathe of land located around the Old Stoneley Road, Monkey Gully Road area. One of the reasons to rezone this area was it was deemed visually unintrusive to the broader landscape and major road networks in the Mansfield Shire. The Mansfield planning scheme still has the same criteria for development, that is, to protect its visual and rural amenity along major highways, corridors and the broader landscape. At the same time, when considering the rezoning, a broad-scale land capability assessment was completed by Mr. Paul Williams to ensure the land in the area was suitable for development. This was a crucial component for the rezoning and future subdivision where reticulated sewage and water is not available. It was this assessment that proved that the land in the immediate area was capable for rezoning to rural living. In 2019, we began the development plan process for this site. This application followed the subdivision and development of Mernda Way. In this instance, I'll call this stage 1. Following lengthy discussions and referral to relevant agencies, the concern was raised by council officers and the CFA regarding access egress to the larger road network in the event of fire in the area. The site is not in a bushfire management overlay, but bushfire risk is an important measure to be considered when developing allotments. It was considered that it would be prudent to wait for the development of the Stoneley Park subdivision. I will call that stage 2, whereas the road network would be finalised that provided the link between Mernda Way and Owens Creek Drive via Stoneley Road to the Mansfield Township. The Monkey Gully Road access via Mernda Way was also available. The subject site is the logical progression or stage 3 and is part of the overall vision for the development in this area of the Mansfield Township. The lot layout as presented in the DP has been designed around the land's capabilities and its natural features. During the assessment stage, we listened and responded to various officers' comments, taking on board their views to achieve the development plan that is in front of you this evening. We have also listened and responded positively to referral authorities and submitters' concerns. The officer's report to be considered this evening succinctly sums up the proposal and is a comprehensive and positive response to the criteria for approval of a DP under the overlay and the rural living zone. We ask the councillors to support the recommendation to approve the DP, and I will ask Mr. Richard Umbers, who is part of the applicant's development team, to provide further information relating to the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. Has any councillor got any questions for Ms. Hogan? Councillor Holcomb.
Ms. Hogan, just good evening, by the way. Just lot 1. I don't know if this is a question to yourself or Mr. Umbers. That's you termed it the balancing lot. What are the plans for that going forward?
The plans for that one, why it was kept large, it's got a waterway that runs east-west down to the creek. That is to remain a larger lot. And the reason why it was designed up this way is so that we didn't have houses going up the hill. There's a large hill to the north. We understand council likes development below a certain percentage or a certain slope. So to protect the visual outlook within the development of Mernda Way, we've left that vacant. That will be planted out with more trees, and it'll be for one dwelling to be located on there, and that will provide the large hill. We didn't want to go up the hill any distance. We wanted to keep the development down lower in the valley.
Because the cynics might say that at some point in time that will be possibly developed. So
as part of, sorry, Councillor Holcomb, as part of the development plan, we have an averaging process, and this is part of that averaging. So that lot has to remain large.
Okay, so that has to remain. Is there a time frame for how long that has to remain large, remain as is? In other words, it does not become part of another development plan?
I suppose that relates back to the rural living zone and its averaging requirements. It becomes part of that averaging. It would be, no, I don't believe that could be developed in the future. And we've discussed that with the planning department. And I believe there was also going to be something put in place where that large parcel couldn't be developed. But the statutory planning coordinator could probably speak to that one better as to what council envisage as that lot to protect it to stay one large lot.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a question on that then, so I'll ask the statutory planning manager about that. I noticed that the one of the studies was done by Mr. Paul Williams, who's highly regarded, and he was the expert opinion for the initial stage of Mernda Way, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And Ms. Hagan, as you know, I'm no planning expert, but I noticed that the study that he's done is pretty well all based around effluent. There's very little said about in there about flood mitigation or drainage. And the feedback from the locals is all of that place floods, and there are real drainage issues there. And I know they've got a certain view on stuff, but why wasn't that mentioned at all by Mr. Williams? It clearly is a swamp, which was, or in parts of it, is very, very wet.
The parts of it that are very wet are in the Stoneley Road Reserve. Most of the waterways are actually in Mernda Way. If you looked at the plan where the waterways are, I think there's one in there in the assessment report. Most of the waterways actually come through the southern end of Mernda Way and then form into part of the Stoneley Road area where that little creek runs down to the north. It's a natural drainage line. There was no requirement to do a stud flooding on this one because it wasn't called up as part of the assessment process. Mr. Williams' report is based on effluent. Now, with the effluent disposal, he has to look at waterways. It's a major thing that he needs to look at, and he has to set the template so that all setbacks for effluent disposal are the correct distance from waterways, which he's done in his study. On the plan that you see with the development plan, that's not flood zone areas. Most of that are just setbacks or exclusion zones for where effluent disposal can be put on these blocks of land. But no, we've got a response back from Gombrook Catchment. They have no issue. They don't have flood mapping. But I have to say I went out there the other day and we had our very unusual rain event the other day, and I even had 2 inches of water going through my gazebo, and I live on the top of a hill. It was a very, very big water event. And I went and had a look at out there, and it was off this parcel of land. It was overflow water. It wasn't flooding. It was overflow water, but the main amount of water was down through those waterways, coming through Mernda Way and down through that little creek. And I have to say, it dissipated as quickly as it came. It didn't take long at all for that water to leave. It was just the nature of that flood event we had. And I did go for a drive around the Botanical Park and had a look at that one too, with the amount of water. So Mr. Williams has to base his on, to meet Council's domestic wastewater management plan, the Goulburn Broken Catchment, especially Goulburn Murray water. He has to prove to them that his land capability assessment means that any wastewater can be treated on these allotments safely. Also, in his second attachment, which was 13.2.3.4, he's put an explanation page in there which refers to the fact that with these types of systems that are going in there, effluent can't come out of them with overland flow in case we had another event like that. So they're designed to ensure that the effluent doesn't, leave the site or leave where it is. And that's in the attachment 13.2.3.4.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah. And I also read the reports from Goulburn Broken Catchment Authority and GMW as well. So yeah, I understand.
Can I also put too that after we had our submitters meeting, we went and obtained LiDAR mapping, which is from a company called Water Technology, and this mapping is the top of the range for accuracy and resolution to support the DP design. And this information was used in Mr. Williams's amended LCA. So we had on-field survey by the surveyors done, and then to, let's say, back us up, we went and spent quite a bit of money on LiDAR mapping, which is what they call top of the range mapping.
So has that been passed on to our planning department?
The LiDAR mapping, no, it formed Mr. Williams's amended LCA.
Oh, okay.
We turned the lots around. We thought we'd also too, after having the meeting with the submitters, that we'd put the longer lots closer to the Stoneleigh Road Reserve. By the way, I think that's only 17 or 18 metres wide. It's not a 20-metre wide road, which is one of the reasons why it couldn't be developed other than the waterway. So we turned the lots around so we could create a bigger distance from those houses that abutted Mernda Way to the west from these allotments being created. It'll enable more vegetation to be planted and the houses to be up further away from the Mernda Way homes.
Okay, thank you.
We got any more questions for Ms. Hogan? In that case, Ms. Hogan, thank you very much for coming along tonight.
Thank you.
And doing the delegation for Monkey Gully Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. So we have Mr. Richard Umbers. Welcome, Mr. Umbers, to our October meeting of the Mansfield Shire with item 13.2.3. You have 3 minutes for your delegation. So go ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor, Councillors, Chief Executive Officer and Senior Council Officers. Firstly, I would actually like to thank the Council Officers for their advice and guidance throughout the application process. And most of the questions that have been answered by Ms. Hogan tonight are actually a reflection of what we actually prepared in response to questions and queries the Council Officers and authorities had. And as much as it was a lengthy process, we've actually got to a point where everyone's comfortable with what's being produced. And as you've actually already indicated, there's 15 lots being proposed, 14 vary an area between 2 and 4.977 hectares. The large one, lot 1, it is actually the lot that actually has all the what we call the significant landscape and environmental features, including the rising topography. And I think that's important as well to consider. It's not only just the ephemeral waterway, it's also the rising topography. It's much steeper. And so it's necessary for that to be protected and buffer zones to be provided to the waterway. Now, the road alignment is a consequent actually response to the natural features of the land, protecting trees and the waterways. The land capability assessment's already been touched on. It provides the building and effluent exclusion zones to protect these waterways. The rural living zone, you've already heard, requires an average lot size of 4 hectares and a minimum lot size of 2 hectares. The lot averaging provision ensures land capability, and the landscape and environmental features of the land are considered, which the development plan does. The Smithers land to the west is also located in a rural living zone and subject to the same subdivision provisions where lot size varies from 2.12 and over 8 hectares. They're actually the existing lot pattern to the west. Notice that the application was given and a consultation meeting held, and the development plan was amended, as Ms. Hogan's mentioned, where we flipped the lots over. They have a much deeper lots on the western side that have abutted the Stony Road, the unmade Stony Road. Those lots are close to 200 metres in depth. Locating and we've actually also moved the access road on Hollands Road to its northern side. And this is a road that's actually 30 metres wide, so it actually allowed for quite extensive opportunities for landscaping on the southern side. Importantly, all external referral authorities and the internal council department support the development plan. The council officer report provides a response to some of the issues raised by submitters, and we provide a response to some of those that have been raised. And firstly relates to the views. With the rising topography to the east, distant views of landscape features are retained, and that's the beauty of Lot 1. It actually retains those features as they currently exist, and only one dwelling is possible on close to 28 hectares. Provide more information on flooding, and I think we've discussed that already now, but Mr. Paul Williams carried out further investigations and review of the flooding risk, and he reported, and I'll just do it in summary for you. It says firstly, the on-ground survey, it shows land has a uniform fall of 22 metres from south to north. And I think that's important. It's a gentle, continuous fall from south to north. So the proposed lots do not flood. And I think that's the important thing. The lots do not flood. Surface water from a rainfall event is captured in the drainage system. Water technology we engage, as Ms. Hogan's mentioned to you, to actually carry out what we call the LIDAR mapping to confirm the on-ground survey and location of the 2 watercourses. This is the most accurate mapping available, which was overlaid onto the development plan to confirm accuracy. Mr. Williams' supplementary report, which is contained in your agenda tonight, confirmed that any surface water from the effluent areas cannot contain any effluent regardless of the intensity and duration of rain events. So it was important that Mr. Williams took into consideration the impact of potential flooding. It can't sit in collected water. So all of these locations where we've got the effluent treatment shown by Mr. Williams, water, any rain will just flow straight across into the drainage system. The bushfire risk you're aware of, and that's confirmed by the CFA support of the development plans, well managed. In the context of the Golden Broken Catchment Management Authority, confirmed the land is not located within a floodplain, and the lot layout is appropriate, is not at risk of flooding. The design and siting guidelines set out in the development plan are consistent with the guidelines applied to the west on the existing lots on Marinda Way. The development plan, as you've heard tonight, is the most appropriate subdivision outcome for the site, expected in the rural living zone and entirely in accordance with the Mansfield planning scheme. Mr. Deputy Mayor and councillors, we request council approval of the development plan application DP 001 /19. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to make this presentation tonight. So if you have any further questions, I'm here to answer them, but we're also doing a bit of a tag team with Ms. Hogan as well. So it may well be sometimes better if Ms. Hogan answers that question. But then again, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Umbers. Has any councillor got any questions for Mr. Umbers?
Sorry.
Right. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Councillor Hoffman, go ahead.
Thanks. It's a similar question to what I asked Ms. Hogan. And it's what I'm supposed to looking for some sort of assurance that that block is not going to be subdivided again. So that last block, and I know that you've answered it, but is there something more definitive than we can say it's not going to be subdivided for, put a number in there, 50 years? I don't know. Is there something more definitive than we've been told?
Well, under the current zoning rules with the averaging, it can't be at the moment because it forms the averaging for the whole lot. We had discussed with Miss Embling, that there'd be condition put on the permit too. The land couldn't be further subdivided. I'm not sure where that stands, and perhaps Miss Embling could answer that question, but we're of the understanding that that block cannot be re-subdivided under the current zone.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions from councillors to the two delegations? Okay, thanks, Ms. Hogan and Mr. Umbers for coming in tonight. I'll ask you to go out into the room, the waiting room, please, and we'll further discuss the motion before us.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, not the motion, the 13.2.3 before us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, have you got any questions for Ms. Embling regarding this item? Yeah, Councillor Holcomb.
Ms. Embling, can we be, how definitive can we be, or is there that? I mean, I'm just a cynic, so and things can change. Maybe the zoning's changed or whatever. But how definitive can we be in saying that's not going to be? There's not a bigger picture here, or another game here.
For you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. So there's a couple of layers to this. The first one being that any planning permit that would issue for future subdivision in accordance with the development plan would require a Section 173 agreement be put on title, stipulating that proposed Lot 1 could not be further subdivided, as it is required to be retained for the balance lot of the whole development. However, further to that if the planning scheme was to change in the future, so being the schedule to the rural living zone, which creates the rule for averaging, if that was to change, then it would change for all rural living zone land across our shire within that particular schedule. So if it changed for this parcel of land, it would likely change for the adjoining land at Marinda Way and Stoneley Park Estate as well, as they all fall under the same schedule. Then the landowner of the future Lot 1 would actually have to put in a formal application to either have that Section 173 agreement amended or removed from the title, which does include a quite extensive process, legal requirements involving further advertising to all of the affected parties, potential affected parties as well. And that would be quite a rigorous process that we would go through, but that could only happen if the rural living zone schedule was to be amended through a planning scheme amendment.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I might add, in terms of that planning scheme amendment process, which falls into the strategic planning side of the department, any strategic planning project, which would include a potential change to the schedule of the rural living zone, would have to go through the full strategic justification. So background studies, justification reports that would have full public engagement and opportunities for comment from any person that may or may not be affected before it would even get to an amendment stage. And councillors have had a lot of experience over the last few years with the amount of work that goes into amending the planning scheme and the amount of engagement and commentary that people have to play in that space. So changing the schedule would not be a simple process either to allow a change to that piece of land.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And just on the, sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Holcomb.
Yeah, sorry, just another question. Just with respect to the flooding issue, and I must admit I'm still circumspect about how much flooding happens here, but is there any liability for council going forward if that does flood for the people who buy these lots?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you. The risk for potential flooding to an extent has been thoroughly considered by the applicant. As you can see on the submitted development plan, there are building and effluent exclusion zones. for the land abutting the waterways and the creeks on the property. That not only is a requirement legally through the EPA guidelines, but also has considered the impacts of those waterways and suitable setback requirements for future development. In relation to your question for future landowners and any risk that there may be, regardless to council or previous landowners, that risk does fall to the buyers or the purchasers of those future lots in terms of the buyer beware. They need to do their due diligence checks. At this current stage, there is no relevant flood overlay policy or land subject to inundation overlay that applies to this land. So it's not identified as being flood prone through the planning scheme. However, not to say that land doesn't flood, because we all know in recent times that water does move in different paths. And the reports submitted by Paul Williams through the land capability assessment do talk about the overland water flows moving through the site in accordance with where those waterways are shown on the development plan.
Okay, so there's no threat of liability at all for us that we should be worried about.
Not to council.
And through Mr. Deputy Mayor, I may also add that council is also in the process and have engaged a consultant to undertake a flood study for areas around the Mansfield Township that aren't already mapped. That includes the area that this site is within. So we are looking to identify if there is any flooding potential in those areas. The result of that is likely that across various properties in the area that will be placing either a floodway overlay or a land subject to inundation overlay. Based on the description of the flooding, the water that was moving over this site, I'd imagine it quantifies from my experience as something that may very well apply a land subject to inundation overlay. All that would result in is an overlay being placed on the property that would require houses to be built at a certain level above that flood level. It wouldn't prohibit development. It would just mean they would have to build them a bit higher. And that's a standard practice in the planning. Keeping in mind this development has yet to have a cultural heritage management plan approved. They do take a significant period of time. I'm very confident that the flood study and any results from that we would have in place before we would have an application for be able to be in a position to issue a planning permit for the development of this lot, to make sure that that additional information is included in for any future purchaser, if that assists.
So if we include that in the motion, that covers that off.
That would be correct, yes.
Correct, thank you.
Yeah. Have we got any other questions for council officers? Have I got a motion before me? Councillor Holcomb.
I'd like to read a motion that alternative motion to the recommendation that's been put forward.
Go ahead.
That motion is that council approves the submitted development plan for rural living zone land on lot 1, plan of subdivision 206686E, commonly addressed as 294 Monkey Gully Road, Mansfield, subject to the inclusion of the recognition of the Mansfield flood study and potential for a floodway overlay and land subject to inundation overlays in the performance measures.
Okay, I have a motion before us. Seconder to the motion. Councillor Sladen. Does anybody like to talk to the motion? Councillor Sladen. Oh, sorry, Councillor Holcomb, you moved it. So
no. Yeah, I just I acknowledge the work that's gone into this, and I acknowledge that the support has been received from DECA, from GBCMA, from GMW, and from the CFA. So it ticks all the boxes there. It meets all the requirements of our local planning requirements, and it fits in, I think, from a size point of view with the rest of the estate that's already there. My only concern is the potential for flooding, and as I mentioned before, what happens to that lot 1. But I think by adding to the motion that was before, the recognition of the flood study and the potential for the floodway overlay land subject, that takes care of my concerns, and I'm sure some of the residents' concerns with respect to flooding. I'm also very pleased that from a liability point of view that council is not at risk at all. So on that basis, I'll put forward the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Holcomb. Councillor Sladden, as seconder, would you like to talk to the motion?
Just agree with what Councillor Holcomb has put forward, but if I can just indulge you for a moment, Mr. Chair, and ask Ms. Crane a question. In the likelihood that this alternative recommendation is approved, or is approved, the condition of the flood study, is that likely to extend the time or prevent the this development proceeding through to the planning permit stage?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, no, it doesn't. It doesn't put any restrictions on it at all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to talk to the motion? Okay, I'll put it to the vote then. So, all in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Embling.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Deputy Mayor Chair.
Yes, Councillor Sladden.
May I beseech your permission to leave this meeting early, as I have another engagement which I need to attend.
Absolutely. You are excused. Thank you, Councillor Sladden. Thanks for your attendance tonight. And we'll do the heavy lifting from now on.
Good on you. I know you can do it. Thank you.
Okay, councillors and staff, we have before us Community and Corporate Services Directorate 13.3.1, which is the election caretaker period policy, and the interim coordinator governance and risk, Jane Carter, is the responsible officer. Good evening, Jane, and thank you very much for attending our meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Councillors, have we got any questions for Ms. Carter? Councillor Webb.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Ms. Carter, is there any material changes to the document, or is this just a regular update?
No, this is just a regular update. There are only minor date changes in the document.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? In that case, have I got a motion before me? Councillor Webb.
Motion being that Council endorse the election caretaker period policy 2023 and endorse the appending of the revised election caretaker period policy to the Governance Rules 2022 to replace the existing election period policy.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Holcomb. Thank you. Anyone would like to talk to the motion?
No, thank you.
No. I'll put the motion to the vote. All in favour? And the motion is carried. You're going to stay with us, Ms. Carter. That's good.
Yes.
We have 13.3.2, which is Draft Governance and Management Checklist 2022-23. Any councillors have any questions to Ms. Carter? Okay, so I've got a recommendation, I've got a movement. Thank you very much, Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The council receive and note the Governance and Management Checklist 2022-23 and to authorise the Mayor and CEO to sign the Governance and Management Checklist 22-23 for the purposes of inclusion in the 2022-23 annual report.
Thank you. And a seconder, thank you, Councillor Webb. I'll put the motion to a vote. All in favour? And the motion is carried. Okay, so item 13.3.3. Thank you, sorry, Ms. Carter, for coming along. Item 13.3.3, the High Country Library Shared Services Agreement 2023-2026. The responsible officer is the Senior Coordinator at Community and Economic Development, Saskia Van Beaver. Have we got Ms. Van Beaver coming in tonight?
Julie, are you taking this report? Saskia is not in the waiting room.
Okay, I can definitely take it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams. Has any councillor?
Saskia has just joined. Apologies, Deputy
Okay.
Mayor. I've just talked over you, but I'm just getting Saskia in now to answer any questions.
Like to talk to the motion? Perfect. I'll put the motion. Thanks, Ms. Beaver. Thank you for coming along tonight. Welcome to our meeting. This is item 13.3.3, the High Country Library Shared Services Agreement 2023-2026. And has any councillor got any questions to Ms. Beaver? Councillor Holcomb.
Welcome, Ms. Van Beer. Just a more due diligence type question than anything else. What are the other options if we don't do this? I've got no doubt this is probably the preferred option, but what are the other options that's taken into consideration with this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this stage, there is an option for us to walk away from the network and run the library on our own. And this would mean the main positive of the network is that it is really cost saving in terms of collection purchases, membership of online collections, audiobooks, etc. It is at the moment with the network, we are paying one fee because we are one network, as well with websites. So we have a website where all members can order books. So if we want to do that on our own, we pretty much need to have build our own website. So, but it is an option to do it.
And that, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Madam CEO.
I'm not sure if the team have quantified it, but I would imagine that the costs to have a standalone service would be substantially higher.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I've read that somewhere in the report, Madam CEO, that yeah, it's substantially higher. I just wondered what other options were considered. Are all shires parts of these sort of networks?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Not every other library is. There are several other networks out there.
Right.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I mean, we did hear some discussion at State Council of library costs rising and some of the metropolitan councils struggling to meet those costs. So definitely having a shared services arrangement is one way of cost sharing, and yeah, those metro councils that were had some motions up were certainly feeling the pain of rising costs, which we seem to have kept ours relatively low by comparison.
And are there any negatives to it from an operating perspective?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In my time when I've been part of the library and the library network. I, to be honest, have come across any negatives. Working together with the 3 other shires has provided us with some insight how other libraries are run and some learnings. The Alpine Shire is the shire who is managing the service, the hub services, and the person running the hub is very diligent and has, I believe, is currently doing the job better than anyone within our own council could do at the moment.
Thank you.
Got any other questions for Ms. Van Beaver? Yes, thank you, Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just what were the costs in the previous agreement?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Sorry, excuse me, the cost in the previous one?
So
or the
what
one...
were we? Yeah, what were we paying per year in the previous agreement compared to this one?
Usually, sorry, I don't have the exact cost in front of me, but usually it goes up by just a CPI increase. So we did, in the end of the last financial year, we did have a saving, and that saving has been passed on to this year's invoice.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, it was pretty much in line with the amount proposed for 23-24, excluding a CPI. That's my memory of it, that it was in the order of around 100, 110, sort of, that's off the top of my head, but yeah, not substantially different.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, have I got a motion before me? Councillor Webb.
Motion being that Council approves entering into the service arrangement for a further 3-year period, authorises the CEO to sign the High Country Library Shared Service Agreement 23 to 26, and notes the estimated total amount for the term of the agreement is $347,313 based on the 2023-24 service fee.
Thank you. And a seconder to the motion. Thank you, Councillor Holcomb. Would anyone like to talk to the motion? Councillor Webb.
Just to say, as a user of the High Country Library Network, I think it's a fantastic idea. It gives our little library the ability to hold a huge back catalogue, and it works really, really well. And I really enjoy the experience when I use it. So I'm very much behind this.
Thank you. Anyone else? In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Van Beaver, for your attendance tonight. Good evening. Thanks. Item 13.3.4, performance statements 2022 to 2023. The responsible officer is the executive manager, community health and wellbeing, Ms. Nola Bales. We've got Ms. Bales coming in tonight.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'll be taking that one. He's taking well-earned leave.
Good honour. Okay, councillors, have you got any questions to the Madam CEO on this item? In that case, just a question?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah.
A question, councillor?
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think the performance statements, are really interesting, and particularly when we get from Vago how we perform against the other shires. I think that's going to be really interesting to compare there. The question is just for the CEO, is there any of those performance measures there that stand out to you as being either really good or disappointing? Is there anything that really stands out?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd say, I guess in general, our costs are relatively low, and there's a number of cost-related measures there. So we're travelling pretty well in terms of how we align with other local governments. They do fluctuate. The cost of statutory planning is probably one that stands out. It depends how many applications you have, because obviously it's a cost per application. Yeah. We did see a decrease in our costs there. That's one that definitely stood out this year. But yeah, look, I don't think there's anything that we would identify to council as a concern. Things are moving in the right direction. Staff turnover was one, I think, that we also watch carefully, that decreased after an increase in the previous financial year, primarily associated with the cessation of home and community care by council. But yeah, I guess a good year. We've controlled costs, and what we're seeing in the performance statement is consistent with that.
Thanks. Madam CEO, thank you.
Any other questions for Madam CEO? Okay, so have I got a motion before me? Would anyone? Thank you, Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The Council approves in principle the performance statements of Mansfield Shire Council for the year ended 30th of June 2023, and two authorises Councillor Mayor Turn and Councillor Deputy Mayor Raby to certify the performance statements of Mansfield Shire Council for the year ended 30th of June 2023, subject to any amendments or changes made as required by the Victorian Auditor General's Office.
Thank you, Councillor Holcomb. Have I got a seconder for the motion? Councillor Webb. Would anyone like to talk to the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion.
I'll just very quickly.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge.
I'm a bit behind tonight there, Councillor Holcomb. Sorry about that.
Oh, I've written it all down for the performance report, so it's relative. It's relevant.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to again acknowledge the work done by the GM for Business and Economic Development, Ms. Williams and her team. A lot of work goes into getting these numbers. And that's just acknowledged. And it comes at a time of the year when it's always so hectic, everything's coming out at once and other parties are involved. So well done on doing that. I think some of the numbers that are going to come out of this, I think, are going to be very interesting, and particularly when, as I said earlier, when we are able to benchmark that against other shires, it really gives us a feel for how we're tracking. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Anyone else would like to speak to the motion? Okay, so I'll put the motion to a vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. So item 13.3.5 is the annual financial statements 2022 to 23. The responsible officer is Ms. Williams, General Manager of Business and Economic Development. And has any councillor got a question for Ms. Williams regarding annual financial statements? Yep. I'll preempt. Councillor Holcomb.
Ms. Williams, I know this. I assume this is just part of local government. I find the disposal of assets. We dispose when the new road's built for the heavy vehicle. Just correct me if my understanding of this is not right, but when we dispose of the heavy vehicle, when we replace the heavy vehicle alternative route, the old road is disposed of and shows up as where does it show? It's been written, so it's been written off basically. Is that I'm not being involved with local government before. I've never quite seen. That's obviously very standard.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's not that I've worked with road assets in the past, but it's very standard with other assets. So if you're actually removing the entire asset, you would be writing the remaining costs that you've got on your books off. If you're only replacing a portion, you would only write off that portion of the asset. In this case, there's certain sections of the road where we are removing the entire road base and in fact shifting it a fraction, and in fact the infrastructure planning general manager could provide further detail, but my understanding is that we are removing the entire road and including that very underlying base. So it is the correct accounting treatment.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a lot of money, isn't it? Just
through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I might just highlight too, that was the approach taken for stage 1, which falls in this financial year. We were able with stage 2 to take a different approach to that, which actually retained and took an overlay design, which meant that the existing road base actually stayed. So we won't have to take the same adjustment we anticipate this financial year.
Oh, okay, you're right.
And through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, there's probably just another factor here, Councillor Holcomb, that as you know, we fair value our assets, and that asset would have increased in recent years in terms of value. So what we're writing off doesn't necessarily represent what we've actually physically paid for the asset or the remaining amount that we had paid for the asset. It would have been written up over the last few years.
Oh, okay, right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I've got a question if any other councillor has questions. No. Ms. Williams, just on the waste management reserve, how are we travelling in that department?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We're travelling very well in that department, and you will notice in the financial statements that we have recovered a fair amount of the deficit this year. So the deficit has reduced down to $33,000 at the end of the year, and that is through activities undertaken by the resources team, and in terms of expenditure savings. And that has allowed for us to use those funds to apply against this deficit reserve. So it's actually a really good result.
Yeah, I see that. Thanks, Ms. Williams. Have we got any other questions for Ms. Williams? In that case, I'd like to ask for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Holcomb.
The motion is that Council approves in principle the financial statements of Mansfield Shire Council for the year ended 30th of June 2023 and authorises Councillor Tien and Councillor Holcomb to certify the Mansfield Shire Council financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2023 on behalf of Council, subject to any amendments or changes made as required by the Victorian Auditor General's Office.
Thank you. I've got a seconder for the motion. Councillor Webb. Would anyone like to talk to the motion? Councillor Holcomb.
Just very briefly, these are a good set of numbers. I think considering what this council's been through the last 12 months and some of the issues we've confronted and that have come up, I think the end result is something that the management team should be very proud of, and so should the community. It's been a job well done, or job well done that's only just started. So well done to the management team.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? In that case, I'd like to put the motion to a vote. All in favour? And the motion is carried. Thanks, Ms. Williams. Don't go anywhere. 13.4.1 is the council Christmas function early office closure. So I'm sure that there's no questions about this. I'll just put it straight to who would like to. Thank you. Move the motion. Councillor Webb.
The council endorsed the closure of its offices, including the main office, community services, youth and family services, visitor information centre, library and field services depot for the period between 12:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. on Friday, 1st of December 2023.
Thank you. And a seconder for the motion, Councillor Holcomb. Anyone would like to speak to the motion?
Enjoy your Christmas party, guys.
And I'll put that motion to a vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. Item 13.4.2 is the Friends of Venalali, the MOU. Responsible officer is our CEO, Ms. Alexander, and we do have David Foster, who's coming in to speak to us about this. I'd like to welcome David, if he can join us from the Friends of Venalali. Come on in, Mr. Foster. The door is open. Good evening, Mr. Foster. Welcome to our meeting this evening for the October Shire meeting. And we have before us item 13.4.2, which is the Friends of Venalali MOU. I believe you'd like to speak to us about that. I can't see you, your hand's in the way.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
All righty. Still trying to sort out the camera.
Oh no, we can see you now. We can hear you. So off you go. You've got 3 minutes, David.
Yep. Thank you. I'm really happy to talk to council and thank you for the opportunity. We went to Venalali a couple of months ago and we took with us the renewed memorandum of understanding that Mayor Tian had signed, and we had a meeting with the local government administrator in Venalali, and he countersigned the MOU. So we're really rapt at that it confirms the friendship relationship between Mansfield and Venalali. And just a little bit of history. In 2004, Mansfield was approached by the Timor Consul General to start a relationship, and the council at that time thought it was a great idea, and we went to Venalali in 2005 with 11 of us from Mansfield, including the mayor, the CEO, community services manager, 2 councillors and myself, and we listened to the village chiefs and the local government people and just what they needed. And as a result, we've been helping them out with education, tourism, and women's handicrafts production ever since. So that's worked really, really well over the past 18 years. But we thought it was time to renew the understanding with Venalali. So, we appreciate your support. It is terrific. Council did sort of run the whole operation for quite a few years, but in 2015, Friends of Venalali became incorporated. So we're a little bit more independent, but we still rely on council. And this MOU is certainly an example of it. And we do sincerely appreciate the annual grant that council gives us to support payment for the salaries for the people we employ over there, without whom nothing would happen. So they're really key people. Mansfield people have headed over to Benallali every year except for the couple of the COVID years. We have monthly meetings. We fundraise actively. And probably our most successful area at the moment is education. We've got 22 scholarships that we offer every year. And we have partnerships currently between 5 Mansfield district schools and Benallali schools. And the local schools have fundraised as well. And they've been able to raise money for things like basketball court construction, building toilets, and purchasing school materials. I think this renewed MOU will put us on a really firm footing for the future. And I think it's definitely worth supporting a friendly, but certainly poor and disadvantaged neighbouring country and a village within it. So I'll just say thank you again to Council.
Thank you, David, for coming along and putting that to us. We really appreciate you doing that. And of course, we're supportive of your efforts. Thanks very much. We'll have to get back to the business of it. Has anyone got questions for Mr. Foster? Any councillors? In that case, thanks very much again, Mr. Foster, for coming along. And we'll put you back into the waiting room so that we can get on with the business of putting the motion to the councillors.
Very good. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, councillors. Have you got any questions for from Ms. Alexander to do with this? In that case, I'll ask for a motion. And Councillor Webb.
Motion be that Council receive and note the signed renewed memorandum of understanding between Mansfield Shire Council and the Sub-District Administration of Benallali.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Holcomb. Anyone like to talk to the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Holcomb.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge the work that they do. That David has done. He's been involved with the organisations from the start. And there's a lot of volunteers, community volunteers who put in a lot of hours and a lot of effort and a lot of their own money also when they travel over there. So I'd just like to acknowledge all that work that they've done. It's a good cause, and it's something that, as you can see, we as a Shire are supportive of. So well done to them.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? In that case, I'll put that motion to a vote. All in favour, please. The motion is carried. Thank you. So item 14 of the agenda is the council meeting resolution action status register. Have we got a motion? Councillor Holcomb.
Thank you. The council receive and note the Mansfield Shire Council meeting resolution actions status register as at 9th of October 2023.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder? Councillor Webb. Would anyone like to speak to that motion? No, in that case, I'll put that motion to a vote. All in favour? That motion is carried. Item 15.1 is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting agenda and minutes. Attached to this, take that as read. Has anyone got any questions?
No.
All right, I'd like Councillor Holcomb, you're moving a motion, are you?
Thank you. The council received the agenda and minutes of the Mansfield Shire Audit and Risk Committee meeting held 4th of October 2023.
Thanks. And a seconder, Councillor Webb. Thank you. Anyone would like to speak to the motion? In that case, I'll put that motion to a vote. All in favour. And the motion is carried. Thanks very much. Item 16, authorisation of sealing documents. Madam CEO, any problems there? No. So it leaves us one more, and that is item 17, the closure of the meeting. I'd like to thank all of our staff, and I'd like to apologise to them for not thanking them at the beginning of the meeting for coming along tonight. Thank you, councillors. I think it's been a good meeting, and for you, all of you out there in Mansfield lands, Shire land, thank you for watching tonight, and good night.
Good night.
We'll close the meeting.
Yep, the live's finished now.